She was hired to fix his home. She healed his heart. Chapter 1. The Weight of Silence. Miami, Florida, 2:14 a.m. The house was not silent. That was the first lie Malik told himself when people asked how he was managing. They assumed a widower's home was a tomb, a place where sound went to die, swallowed by the heavy velvet drapes and the memory of a woman who was no longer there. But silence would have been a mercy. Silence would have been peace. Malik Thompson did not have peace. There was the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. The distant rhythmic thrum of the pool filter cycled outside, pushing water no one had swum in for 6 months. And there was the phantom vibration of his phone against the granite countertop. Another email from the logistics team in Nassau. Another delayed container. Another fire waiting to be put out. And, most deafening of all, he had the sound of his own insomnia. Malik stood in the center of his living room, a glass of water in his hand, staring out at the darkness of the backyard. At 40, he was a man built for endurance. His shoulders were broad, his frame maintained by a punishing workout routine that served less as fitness and more as an exorcism of nervous energy. But tonight, the reflection in the sliding glass door showed the cracks in the foundation. His eyes were rimmed with exhaustion. The gray t-shirt he wore stretched tight across his chest, but he felt hollow inside. 3 years. It had been 3 years since the hospital, since the sudden complication that took Elena, since the word widower was stapled to his chest like a name tag he couldn't take off. He checked his watch. 2:17 a.m. In 4 hours, the sun would rise over Biscayne Bay. In 4 hours and 15 minutes, Zadie, his 5-year-old, would wake up screaming for socks that didn't itch. In 4 hours and 30 minutes, Amara, his 7-year-old, would refuse to eat breakfast, staring at her plate with the same silent, accusing grief that Malik saw in the mirror every day. He was failing them. He knew it with the cold, hard logic of a businessman. He ran a logistics firm that moved freight between Miami and the Caribbean with seamless efficiency. He could coordinate shipping lanes, negotiate with customs officials in Nassau, and manage a fleet of trucks. But he could not figure out how to braid hair without pulling. He could not figure out how to make a house feel like a home when the heart of it had stopped beating. He took a sip of water. It was lukewarm. "Help," his mother had said yesterday, her voice sharp over the phone. "Malik, you need help, real help, not a cleaning service, not a babysitter who sits on her phone while my granddaughters watch TV. You need someone to manage this life because you are drowning." "I'm not drowning," he had lied. "You're not swimming," she said into the phone, her voice low but steady. "You're treading water, and you're tired." There was a pause, the faint hum of the line between them. "I sent the agency profile," she continued, shifting into that practical tone he knew well. "Her name is Arielle. She has a degree in education and experience working with children." Another beat. "She's from the Bahamas," she added. "Just interview her." Malik set the glass down. He didn't want a stranger in his house. He didn't want another woman walking these halls, touching Elena's things, trying to be a mother to children who already had one, even if she was gone. He wanted to do it himself. He wanted to be strong enough. But as he looked up the stairs towards the bedrooms where his daughter slept in a chaos of tangled sheets and bad dreams, he admitted the truth. The ache he refused to name was not just grief. It was inadequacy. He was the managing partner. He was the provider. And he was falling apart. He picked up his phone and opened the email his mother had sent. Candidate, Arielle Baptiste. Experience, early childhood education, 10 years. Status, available immediately. He stared at the name. It sounded soft, practical, temporary, Fine, he whispered to the empty room. Temporary. 8:45 a.m. Arielle Baptiste checked her reflection in the rearview mirror of her compact sedan 3 times before she turned off the engine. Calm, she told herself. You are calm. You are capable. You are not desperate. But the tremor in her hands told a different story. She needed this job. She needed it with a quiet, relentless urgency she kept hidden beneath a mask of professional poise. Her immigration lawyer had explained it carefully after the divorce. Calm, measured words that still echoed in her mind. The marriage had ended before the conditions on her green card were removed, but she wasn't undocumented. Her case was pending. She had filed the I-751 on her own, the thick packet mailed with shaking hands, her future sealed inside envelopes and evidence. The receipt notice now lived folded in her bag like a lifeline. It extended her lawful status. It allowed her to work, to live, to remain in the country legally while she waited. On paper, she was safe. Emotionally, she didn't feel that way. Approval could take months, sometimes longer. Until then, everything felt provisional. Every interview, every paycheck, every plan. She felt as though she had to prove herself at every turn. Stable, independent, responsible. A contributing member of society. Someone worth letting stay. The divorce had left her emotionally bruised and financially strained. She had married believing she was stepping into safety, only to discover control disguised as care. Slowly, deliberately, her husband had dismantled her confidence, managing the money until she felt like a child in her own home. Leaving him had been an act of survival, but survival came at a cost. And now, waiting for approval, for certainty, for solid ground, she needed this job more than she was willing to say out loud. Now, she was 34, staring at a mansion in Coral Gables, high walls, iron gates, clean lines that looked more like a fortress than a home, praying that Malik Thompson wasn't another man who used his power like a weapon. Arielle stepped out of the vehicle. The Miami heat was already rising, a humid blanket that reminded her of Nassau, where she was born, and the stories of Haiti her parents had told her growing up. She paused at the curb long enough to orient herself, checking the house number against the address saved on her phone. She smoothed down her dress, a simple linen shift in muted olive green, professional, practical, breathable in the heat. Her hair was pulled into a low, neat bun, her natural curls controlled but visible. She walked up the short path to the front door. It was massive, dark wood with iron fixtures, the kind that made her straighten her shoulders without thinking. She rang the bell and waited. There were no footsteps. The door simply swung open, revealing a man who took up the entire frame. Malik Thompson was taller than she expected. The file had said he was a businessman, but he looked like an athlete who had been forced into a suit. His shoulders strained against the white dress shirt he wore, the top button undone, no tie. His skin was a deep, rich brown, and his face was handsome in a severe, unyielding way. But it was his eyes that stopped her. They were tired, deeply, historically tired. Mr. Thompson? Arielle asked. Her voice was steady, a low alto that she had trained years ago as a teacher to command a room without shouting. Malik, he corrected, though there was no warmth in the invitation to use his first name. He stepped aside. You're Arielle? Yes. You're on time. I prefer to be early, she said, stepping into the foyer. The air conditioning hit her instantly, a blast of artificial chill. The house was beautiful. High ceilings, marble floors, modern art that probably cost more than she had made in the last 5 years. But it felt sterile. It smelled of lemon polish and stale coffee. It felt like a hotel lobby where everyone was checking out and no one was checking in. "We can talk in the kitchen," Malik said, already walking away. He didn't offer to take her bag. He didn't offer water. He was moving with the efficient, clipped pace of a man who viewed this interview as a transaction to be completed. Arielle followed him. As she passed the living room, she saw the signs of life that the architecture tried to hide. A single pink sock on the stairs, a coloring book abandoned on a velvet armchair, a bowl of cereal, half eaten, congealing on the dining table. This house is holding its breath, she thought, and he is suffocating in it. In the kitchen, Malik leaned against the island, crossing his arms over his chest. He didn't invite her to sit. This was a power move, consciously or not. He was establishing the hierarchy. "My mother says you're Bahamian," Malik said, looking at her resume on the counter. "My parents are Haitian, but I was born and raised in Nassau before moving here," Arielle clarified. She was proud of her heritage, the blend of cultures that made her who she was. "I understand you have family in the islands as well." "Grandparents," he said briefly. "We operate out of Nassau, but I'm American." It was a dismissal. "Don't try to bond with me over culture," his tone said. "I'm not looking for a friend." "I need someone to manage the chaos," Malik said, getting straight to the point. "I have 2 daughters. Amara is 7, Zadie is 5. They are spirited. I don't need a babysitter to watch TV with them. I need someone to organize their lives. Doctor appointments, school pickups, meals that aren't takeout, laundry. I travel for business. I need to know the house won't burn down when I'm gone." "I am not a babysitter, Mr. Thompson," Arielle said, meeting his gaze levelly. "I am an educator by training and a household manager by profession. I don't watch children. I raise them. I don't clean houses. I manage homes." Malik blinked. He hadn't expected the pushback. Most of the candidates the agency sent had been overly eager, smiling too much, trying to charm him. Arielle Baptiste wasn't smiling. She was looking at him with a calm, observant expression that made him feel strangely exposed. "And the cooking?" he asked. "I cook. Healthy, balanced meals. If your children have allergies, I need to know. If they have preferences, I will work with them. But I don't run a restaurant. They eat what is served." Malik's lips twitched. Was that amusement? "Zadie only eats things that are orange," he said dryly. "Then we will start with carrots and sweet potatoes and work our way to squash," Arielle replied without missing a beat. "She'll be eating greens by next month." Malik studied her. She was beautiful, he noticed, in a way that wasn't demanding. Her skin was a warm brown, her eyes expressive but guarded. She stood with a natural grace, her hands clasped loosely in front of her. She looked solid, safe. "Why this job?" he asked. "You have a degree in early childhood education and over 10 years of experience working with children. Most recently, you were a teacher at an elementary school. I also see you worked as a travel nanny earlier in your career." He looked up from the file. "Why apply for a live-in nanny position? And why now?" Arielle stiffened slightly. It was a dangerous question. She couldn't tell him she was divorced, that she no longer had a place of her own, that she was, in the quietest sense of the word, homeless. A live-in nanny position wasn't just a job. It meant income, shelter, meals, stability. It meant not having to calculate how long she could stay on a friend's couch before wearing out her welcome. Couch surfing was not a plan. It was a pause, and pauses didn't last forever. She couldn't say she was starting over financially. She couldn't mention the immigration process still pending. She couldn't explain that she had family in the Bahamas who depended on her, that part of every paycheck would travel across the water to keep others afloat. "I experienced some personal transitions recently." Arielle chose her words carefully. practicing the restraint she valued. I stepped away from the classroom to avoid burnout. I find that working one-on-one with a family allows me to make a deeper impact without the bureaucracy of the school system. And quite frankly, the live-in arrangement suits my current needs for stability. It was the truth, mostly. Stability, Malik repeated the word. He looked at his wedding ring, twisting it unconsciously on his finger. We don't have much of that here. Suddenly, a crash echoed from the hallway, followed by a high-pitched shriek. Give it back! It's Mommy's! Malik flinched. The mask of the businessman slipped, revealing the panicked father underneath. He pushed off the counter, but before he could move, Arielle was already turning toward the noise. Shall we? She asked, not waiting for permission. They walked into the living room. 2 little girls were wrestling on the floor. The older one, Amara, was clutching a silver hairbrush to her chest, tears streaming down her face. The younger one, Zadie, was yanking at Amara's arm, screaming, I want to brush my hair. Daddy said I could, Zadie yelled. No! You'll break it! It's hers! Amara sobbed, curling into a ball to protect the object. Malik froze. The hairbrush. It was Elena's, silver-backed, engraved. He hadn't seen it in months. He thought he had packed it away. Seeing it in Amara's hands felt like a physical blow. Girls, Malik said, his voice rough. Stop it! Now! They ignored him. The screaming escalated. Malik looked helpless. He was a man who commanded fleets of ships, but he couldn't stop 2 little girls from breaking his heart. Arielle stepped forward. She didn't shout. She didn't run. She moved with a fluid, deliberate speed. She knelt down on the floor, not touching the girls, but lowering herself to their eye level. She clapped her hands once, a sharp, loud sound that cut through the noise. Zadie stopped pulling. Amara looked up, startled. Good morning, Arielle said softly. Her voice was calm, contrasting with the chaos. My name is Arielle. That is a very beautiful brush, Amara. Amara clutched it tighter, eyeing the stranger suspiciously. It's my mommy's. I can see that, Arielle said. She didn't try to take it. She didn't say it's just a brush. She honored the object's weight. It looks very special. It looks like the kind of brush you have to be very gentle with. Amara nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. Arielle turned to Zadie, who was pouting, her arms crossed. And you want to be beautiful too? You want your hair brushed? Yes, Zadie grumped. Daddy can't do it right. He pulls. Malik winced in the background. Well, Arielle said, I am very good at hair, and I have a special way of brushing that doesn't hurt. But we can't use the special silver brush for tangles. That brush is for finishing, for shining. She reached into her oversized tote bag that she had left by the door and pulled out a wide-toothed comb and a small bottle of a leave-in conditioner, tools of the trade she never traveled without. How about we make a deal? Arielle proposed. I help you get the tangles out with my magic comb. And then, Amara, you can do the final 3 strokes with the special brush. You can be the big sister who puts the shine on. Would that be okay? The room went silent. The holding its breath feeling eased. Just a fraction. Amara looked at the brush, then at Zadie. The responsibility of being the big sister appealed to her. She sniffed and nodded. Okay. Zadie looked at the leave-in conditioner. Does it smell like candy? It smells like coconuts, Arielle smiled. It was the first time she had smiled, and it transformed her face. It was warm, real, and devoid of performance, like the beach. Malik watched, stunned. In under 2 minutes, she had de-escalated a situation that usually ended with him shouting or everyone crying. She hadn't undermined him. She hadn't tried to be their mother. She had simply been an authority. Arielle stood up, her knees cracking slightly. She looked at Malik. She didn't look triumphant. She looked professional. "They are lovely girls," she said. "Just spirited." Malik let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He looked at Arielle, really looked at her, and realized that for the first time in 3 years, someone was offering to carry the load, not just watch him struggle with it. "The agency conducted background checks," he said. "I reserve the right to do my own." "When can you start?" Malik asked. Arielle adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder. "I can move in today. 5:30 p.m. Moving in was a strange, disjointed experience. Arielle had packed her life into 2 large suitcases and 3 boxes. It wasn't much. When she left her husband, she had left behind the furniture, the wedding gifts, the accumulated clutter of a life that wasn't hers. She traveled light now. It was safer that way. The guest suite Malik had assigned to her was on the first floor, past the kitchen, in a separate wing of the house. It was spacious with its own bathroom and a small sitting area that opened out to the pool deck. It was luxurious. It was sterile. Arielle sat on the edge of the queen-sized bed. The sheets were high thread count white cotton, crisp and cool against her skin. From her bag, she took out her passport, her green card, her social security card, and the most recent notice from USCIS confirming receipt of her at 751 application. She placed them carefully into the small safe in the closet, her most valuable possessions, and closed the door. She stood and began to unpack. She hung her clothes, practical dresses, slacks, tunics, in the cedar-lined closet. She placed a framed photo of her parents on the nightstand. They were smiling, standing on a beach in Nassau, the wind lifting her mother's dress. They were proud of her. They believed she was living the American dream. They didn't know she was living in a stranger's spare room, navigating the quiet fallout of a divorce she rarely spoke about. She took out her small prayer book and set it beside the photo. There was a knock on the door. Arielle smoothed her dress and opened it. Malik stood there. He had changed out of his suit into dark jeans and a polo shirt, but he still looked tense. He held a set of keys and a thick binder. "Keys to the house, the gate, and the SUV in the garage," he said, handing them to her. "The binder has the girls' schedules, school pickup and drop-off times, emergency contacts, allergy information, and the household budget card." "Thank you," she said, taking them. Their fingers brushed for a fraction of a second, just a transfer of metal and plastic, but she felt the heat of his skin. He was warm, unexpectedly warm. Malik pulled his hand back quickly. "We have a cleaner who comes twice a week," he added, his voice strictly business. "You don't need to scrub floors. Focus on the girls. Focus on the routine. I leave for the office at 7. I'm usually back by 7 in the evening. If I'm traveling, I'll let you know." She nodded. "If anything feels unclear," he said, then paused, choosing his words. "Ask. I don't expect guesswork." "Understood." He lingered in the doorway. He looked like he wanted to say something else, but he didn't. "Dinner is at 6:30 today," Arielle blurted, taking the lead. "I'm making chicken souse. Just something simple tonight." Malik paused. "Chicken souse?" "Bahamian style," she said. "If that's all right." A shadow crossed his face. Memory, perhaps. Or hunger. "That's fine," he said. "The girls, they haven't had home-cooked food in a while. Don't be offended if they don't eat it." "I don't get offended easily, Malik," she said softly. He looked at her, startled by the use of his name again. It sounded different when she said it. Grounded. "Right," he said, stepping back. "I'll be in my study until then." He turned and walked away. Arielle watched him go. She saw the tension in his shoulders, the controlled strength in the way he moved, the quiet burden of the house, the business, the grief he carried without complaint. She closed the door and leaned against it, letting out a long breath. She was an employee. He was her boss. This was a transaction. She didn't allow herself to linger on the shape of his back, the warmth she'd felt when their hands brushed. That way led to mistakes, and mistakes were not something she could afford. But as she looked around the quiet room, she knew it was going to be more complicated than that. Arielle walked to the window and looked out at the pool. The water was still. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the patio. She was safe here, for now. She had a job. She had a roof. Don't get attached, she whispered to the glass. Do the job. Save the money. Send money home. Wait for your finalized papers from immigration. Leave. It was a good plan, a practical plan. Arielle rolled up her sleeves and moved toward the kitchen. The pot filled, the water brought to a steady simmer. Chicken, onions, citrus, and spice followed. Simple, familiar motions she didn't have to think about. As the scent of lemon, thyme, and simmering chicken drifted down the hall and the sound of small running footsteps echoed from the floor above, Arielle Baptiste had the sinking feeling that life, messy, loud, undeniable life, was about to ruin her perfectly practical plan. The house had been holding its breath, and Arielle had just reminded it how to exhale. Chapter 2, Breathing Room. Next day. Arielle woke earlier than she needed to. The house was still asleep, unfamiliar but no longer foreign. The house smelled of thyme, garlic, and the faint, earthy sweetness of browning sugar. It was a scent that had no business lingering in the vaulted, air-conditioned hallways of a modern Coral Gables mansion. This was a house designed for odorless sterility, for white orchids in glass vases, and the faint chemical tang of pool chlorine. But Arielle Baptiste was learning that scent could soften even the most guarded spaces. In the kitchen, Arielle stood over the stove, a wooden spoon in her hand, humming low in her throat. The dish simmering wasn't stew chicken, not yet, but something gentler, easier, meant to ease everyone into the evening. She hadn't learned Bahamian cooking from her mother, who was Haitian and practical in the kitchen. She had learned it from a Bahamian neighbor who used to babysit her after school, a woman who believed food was how you made people feel held. Miss Arielle? Arielle turned. Zadie stood by the kitchen island, wearing a tutu over her pajama pants and holding a marker like a dagger. Yes, Zadie. Amara says green peppers are dragon skin, Zadie said seriously, and if I eat them, I'll turn into a lizard. Arielle didn't laugh. She had already learned that Zadie's worries were not small. Well, Arielle said thoughtfully, wiping her hands on her apron, Amara has a very big imagination, but dragons don't have green skin. They have purple skin. Zadie narrowed her eyes. Purple? Very rare dragons, Arielle said solemnly. She lifted a cube of pepper. These are power rocks. They make you run faster. Faster than Amara? Much faster, but only if they're cooked. Zadie considered this, then whispered, Okay, but hide them. Our secret. Zadie scampered off, her tutu rustling. Arielle watched her go, smiling briefly before turning back to the stove. She adjusted the heat, considering the night ahead. The kitchen smelled richer. Thyme, Scotch bonnet peppers, and the deep sweetness of browning sugar. This time, it was stew chicken. She added the peppers to the pot. 6:15 p.m. Malik gripped the steering wheel of his SUV, his knuckles tight. The traffic on US 1 was a snarled mess of brake lights and aggression. But that wasn't why his jaw was clenched. For 3 years, the drive home had been the worst part of his day. The office was safe. At the office, he was the boss. He solved problems. If a container was stuck in customs in Nassau, he made a call. If a shipment was late, he authorized overtime. There was a logic to logistics, but home? Home was a landmine. Every time he pulled into the driveway, he braced himself. He braced himself for the silence that reminded him Elena was dead, or he braced himself for the screaming that reminded him his daughters were hurting. He braced himself for the clutter, the permission slips he forgot to sign, the laundry that piled up like a monument to his failure. He turned into his neighborhood, the lush canopy trees of Coral Gables casting long shadows over the street. He approached his gate, pressed the remote, and waited for the iron bars to swing open. He drove up the paver driveway and parked. He turned off the engine. He sat there for a moment, gathering the energy to face the chaos. "Get it together, Malik," he muttered. "They need you." He grabbed his briefcase and opened the car door. The first thing he noticed was the silence. Not the dead, hollow silence of grief, but a peaceful silence. No one was screaming. He unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The air conditioning was set to exactly 72 degrees. The foyer was clear of shoes. And the smell. Malik stopped dead in his tracks. It hit him instantly. A rich, savory wave of caramelized sugar, garlic, thyme, and simmering meat. It was a smell from his childhood, a smell that belonged in his grandmother's kitchen in Nassau, not his modern fortress in Miami. Stew chicken. His stomach grumbled, a violent, traitorous sound. He hadn't realized he was hungry. He rarely ate lunch, usually powering through on black coffee and adrenaline. He walked into the living room. The TV was off. This was new. Usually the TV was the babysitter. Instead, Amara was sitting at the low coffee table, her homework spread out. She was chewing on the end of a pencil, looking frustrated but focused. Zadie was on the floor nearby, drawing on a large pad of paper, her tongue sticking out in concentration. And Arielle was there. She was sitting on the ottoman, not hovering, just present. She was reading a paperback book, her posture upright but relaxed. She wore a simple gray apron over her dress. "Daddy!" Zadie yelled, dropping her marker. The spell broke. Zadie launched herself at him, tackling his legs. Malik dropped his briefcase and caught her, lifting her up. She smelled like coconut and soap. "Hey, Z," he said, burying his face in her neck. "You smell good." "Miss Arielle used the magic detangler," Zadie announced, patting her hair. It was neatly braided, 2 cornrows sweeping back into puffs. "And I'm gonna eat dragon skin tonight." "Dragon skin?" Malik looked at Arielle. Arielle marked her page and stood up. "Green peppers," she explained, her face impassive. "Welcome home, Malik." "Thank you," he said. He felt off balance. The transition from CEO to father usually took an hour of stress. Today, it had taken 10 seconds. "Dinner is in 10 minutes, Arielle said. "Amara, 5 more minutes on the math, then wash up." "Yes, Miss Arielle," Amara mumbled, not looking up. Malik stared. Amara never did her homework without a fight. "How?" Malik asked, looking at Arielle. "How did you get her to do math?" Arielle shrugged slightly, a modest gesture that didn't hide her competence. "We made a deal. Homework first, then she gets to choose the music for cleanup time." "Cleanup time has music?" "Everything is better with the rhythm," Arielle said. She turned and walked toward the kitchen. "Go change. You look like you've been carrying the world." Malik stood there for a moment, watching her walk away. She was right. He felt lighter. He walked up the stairs, unbuttoning his shirt. For the first time in years, he wasn't dreading the evening. 7:30 p.m. Dinner was in revelation. They sat at the dining table, not the kitchen island, but the actual table. Arielle had said it, not formally, but neatly. Placemats, silverware, water glasses. The stew chicken was perfect. The gravy was dark and rich, coating the rice and peas. The chicken fell off the bone. There was a side of fried plantains, golden and sweet. Malik took the first bite and had to close his eyes. It tasted like memory. It tasted like safety. This is... He paused, looking for the word. Good. Really good. It's okay, Amara said, poking at a piece of carrot. It's not pizza. It's better than pizza, Malik said firmly. He looked at Arielle, who was eating quietly at the other end of the table. He had insisted she eat with them. She had tried to decline, saying she would eat later, but he had held his ground. He didn't want a servant. He wanted a household. Where did you learn to make this? Malik asked. This isn't the American version. This is the real thing. My mother, Arielle said, keeping her eyes on her plate. She believed that if you didn't brown the sugar until it was almost burnt, you weren't cooking. You were just playing. Malik chuckled. A rusty sound. My grandmother said the same thing. She used to say, darkness is where the flavor lives. Arielle looked up, surprised. Their eyes met across the table. For a second, the employer-employee barrier thinned. They were just two people sharing a cultural touchstone. Your grandmother was from Nassau? Arielle asked. Exuma, originally, Malik said. But she moved to Nassau, then here. She tried to teach Elena how to cook this once. He stopped. The name hung in the air. The girls went quiet. Usually when Elena's name was mentioned, the mood shattered. Malik would withdraw, or Amara would cry. Arielle didn't freeze. She didn't look away. She simply nodded, acknowledging the memory without letting it drown them. It is a hard dish to learn, Arielle said softly. It takes patience. I'm sure she appreciated the effort. Malik looked at her. The tightness in his chest surprised him. She hadn't tried to steer the moment away or soften it for her own comfort. She had simply let Elena exist in the room. Can I have more plantains? Zadie asked, oblivious to the tension. One more, Arielle said. Then fruit. The moment passed. The breath that the house had been holding was released. 3 weeks later. It had been 3 weeks. 3 weeks of early mornings, fragile routines, and learning the rhythms of grief. 3 weeks of pretending her own life wasn't balanced on waiting. Earlier that afternoon, the school had called. Zadie had forgotten her lunch, and Arielle had driven over without hesitation. Badge clipped to her dress, name signed where a mother's would have gone. No one questioned it. No one asked. The mail arrived later. Among Malik's bills and business journals was a letter addressed to her. From her lawyer. She hadn't opened it yet. It waited on the dresser in her guest room, heavy with implication. Focus, she told herself. You are here to work. You are here to create peace. She had turned the job into a system. Amara needed silence after school. Zadie needed touch. The house needed cool afternoons and warm evenings. And Malik Thompson needed the house to run without him noticing. Malik came home just after 7. Arielle heard the familiar sound of the gate opening, the soft thud of the front door closing. The girls called out to him from the living room, their voices overlapping. He answered them, already loosening his tie. Dinner was finished. Rice and beans with chicken, simple and filling. The dishes were stacked neatly in the sink, waiting for the dishwasher. Amara sat on the floor working through a puzzle, her brows drawn together in concentration, while Zadie moved from room to room in socks, humming to herself and dragging a stuffed animal by one arm. It was peaceful. Malik knew better than to trust it completely, but he allowed himself to relax anyway. He stepped out onto the patio with his phone, checking emails and letting the warm night air settle around him as Arielle finished clearing the table inside. Then came the scream. It wasn't a play scream. It was a scream of genuine pain and terror. Malik dropped his phone and sprinted inside. In the hallway, Amara was running, looking terrified. She fell. She fell on the corner. Malik ran into the living room. Zadie was on the floor, clutching her forehead. Blood, shockingly bright against her skin, was seeping through her fingers. She had tripped and hit the sharp corner of the wooden TV console. Zadie! Malik fell to his knees. Let me see, baby. Let me see. Zadie was wailing, a high, breathless sound. Mommy! I want Mommy! The word hit Malik like a physical slap. Mommy. She hadn't called for Elena in months. I'm here, Z. Daddy's here, Malik said, his hands shaking. He tried to pull her hands away to check the wound, but she thrashed, kicking out. No, no, Mommy, she screamed, her eyes squeezed shut, blood mixing with tears. Malik froze. Panic, cold and sharp, seized him. There was too much blood. She was screaming for a dead woman. He didn't know what to do. He felt the familiar paralysis of grief rising up, choking him. He was useless. He couldn't fix this. Malik. The voice was calm, sharp enough to cut through the panic, but soft enough not to add to the noise. Arielle was there. She had a clean kitchen towel in her hand and a small first aid kit in the other. Move back slightly, she said. It wasn't a request. Malik shuffled back, making space. Arielle knelt down. She didn't grab Zadie. She didn't hush her. She simply sat close to her and began to hum. It was a low, rhythmic sound, a melody that dipped and rose like a wave. It was an old Haitian Creole lullaby. Zadie didn't stop crying immediately, but the sound of the song seemed to confuse her enough to make her pause for a breath. Zadie, Arielle said, her voice matching the rhythm of the song. I know it hurts. It hurts so much. That was a big bump. She validated the pain. She didn't dismiss it. I need to put this cool cloth on it, Arielle said, just to catch the red drops. Can you help me hold it? Zadie sobbed, opening her eyes. She looked at Arielle, then at Malik. Mommy, she whispered, weaker now. I know, Arielle said softly. She placed the towel gently against the cut. I know you want Mommy. It's okay to want her. Malik felt his heart stop. Most people tried to distract the girls when they asked for Elena. Look at the toy. Look at the TV. Arielle looked the grief in the face. Daddy is right here, Arielle said, guiding Zadie's hand to hold the towel. And I am right here. We have you. She looked up at Malik. Her eyes were clear, anchoring him. It's a scalp cut, she said to him, her voice professional but kind. They bleed a lot, but it's shallow. She doesn't need stitches, just a butterfly strip and ice. Deep breaths, Malik. Deep breaths, Malik. She was coaching him as much as the child. Malik inhaled shakily. He nodded. I'll get the ice, he croaked. Good, Arielle said. She turned her attention back to Zadie, stroking her hair, continuing to hum the lullaby. Malik stood up. His legs felt weak. He went to the kitchen and grabbed an ice pack from the freezer. He leaned his forehead against the cold stainless steel of the fridge for a second. He had almost broken, but she hadn't let him. When he returned, Arielle had Zadie in her lap. The bleeding had slowed. Amara was sitting close by, holding Zadie's foot in silent solidarity. It was a tableau of a family being held together by a stranger. "Here," Malik said, handing over the ice. "Thank you," Arielle said. She looked up at him. "She's brave, like her father." Malik looked at his daughter, then at Arielle. "She's not brave," he whispered. "She's hurt." "You can be both," Arielle said. The words hung in the air, heavy and true. The late night encounter, 1:30 a.m. The adrenaline crash was worse than the panic. Malik couldn't sleep. He had checked on Zadie 4 times. She was sleeping soundly, a small bandage on her forehead. Amara was asleep in the bed next to her. She had insisted on a sleepover. The house was silent again, but this time it felt different. It felt charged. Malik went downstairs. He needed water. He needed to wash the image of the blood out of his mind. He walked into the kitchen, keeping the lights off, navigating by the moonlight spilling in from the patio doors. He stopped. Someone was already there. Arielle was standing by the sink, a mug in her hands. She was wearing a silk robe over her nightgown, modest, long-sleeved, deep blue. Her hair was loose, a halo of dark curls that she usually kept restrained in a bun. She jumped slightly when she saw him. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to startle you. I couldn't sleep." "Neither could I," Malik said. He stayed near the doorway, acutely aware that he was in boxers and a t-shirt, and she was in her nightclothes. It felt intimate, too intimate. "Is Zadie okay?" she asked. "She's sleeping. Snoring, actually." Arielle smiled, a small, tired shift of her lips. "Good." Malik walked over to the fridge and poured himself a glass of water. He leaned against the counter, keeping a respectful distance, but the kitchen felt small. "Thank you," he said. "For earlier, I froze." "You didn't freeze," Arielle said. "You were terrified. There is a difference. I should have known what to do. I'm her father." "Malik!" Arielle turned to face him. Her face was illuminated by the moonlight. She looked softer than she did in the daylight. "You are grieving too. When she called for her mother, that wasn't just her pain. It was yours." He looked at her, stunned by her perceptiveness. "You see too much." "I observe," she corrected. "It's my job." "Is it your job to sing Haitian Creole songs to my children?" he asked. It wasn't an accusation. It was curiosity. Arielle looked down at her mug. "My mother used to sing that song to me. It's about a crab in the soup. It's silly, really, but the rhythm, it calms the heartbeat." "It was nice," Malik said. "Thank you." He took a step closer. "Just one." "You brought peace into this house, Arielle," he said. His voice was low, rough with exhaustion. "I don't know how you did it, but you did." "It's temporary," she said quickly. Her hand tightened on the mug. "I'm just doing the job." "Is it just a job?" The question hung there. Arielle looked up at him. He saw the conflict in her eyes, the fear. She was guarding something. "It has to be," she whispered. "I can't afford for it to be anything else." "I understand," he said. "I can't afford it either." He was talking about his heart. She was talking about her survival. They stared at each other. The air between them hummed with a dangerous electricity. He noticed the curve of her neck. She noticed the strength of his forearms. He wanted to reach out. He wanted to touch her hand, just to see if she was as warm as she seemed. Dangerous, his mind warned. This is betrayal. Malik set his glass down on the counter with a sharp clink. "Good night, Arielle," he said abruptly. He turned and walked out of the kitchen, not waiting for a response. He walked fast, as if escaping a fire. Arielle stood alone in the moonlight. She brought the mug to her lips. Her hands were shaking. She had told herself not to get attached. She had told herself he was just a boss. But as she watched the empty doorway where he had stood, she knew she was already failing. The house was breathing again, but she was finding it harder and harder to catch her own breath. Chapter 3. Dangerous Comfort. Miami International Airport. Tuesday, 6 a.m. Malik Thompson stood in the TSA pre-check line, checking his phone for the fourth time in 2 minutes. There were no new notifications. By his calculation, Arielle would be waking the girls up right now. She would be opening the curtains in Amara's room, letting the Miami sun invade the gloom of a 7-year-old who hated mornings. She would be coaxing Zadie out of bed with promises of pancakes or dragon skin eggs. For the first time in 3 years, Malik was leaving Miami without a knot of absolute suffocating dread in his stomach. Usually business trips were a torment. He would spend every meeting in Nassau checking the nanny cam feeds, texting the babysitter, and bracing himself for the inevitable call that someone was sick, crying, or missing him. He would rush through negotiations, sign contracts without reading the fine print, and fly back on the last flight out, exhausted and guilty. But today, the dread was different. It wasn't panic. It was a strange, hollow ache. He wasn't afraid the house would burn down. He knew with a certainty that unnerved him that Arielle had it under control. He was afraid that they wouldn't miss him. ID and boarding pass, the TSA agent barked, snapping Malik out of his reverie. Malik handed them over. He straightened his blazer. He was in logistics mode now, the managing partner, the man who moved shipping containers across the Caribbean. He needed to focus. A strike at the port of Nassau was threatening to delay 3 weeks of shipments. Millions of dollars were on the line. But as he walked through the scanner, his mind drifted back to the kitchen the night before. Arielle had been packing lunches. She moved with a rhythm that mesmerized him. Slice, wrap, pack. She didn't ask him what to do. She told him what she needed. I put the emergency contact list on the fridge, she had said, not looking up from the sandwich she was assembling, and I have the itinerary. Focus on the strike, Malik. We are fine here. We are fine here. The we included her. It implied a unit, a team. Malik grabbed his bag from the conveyor belt. He walked toward the gate, the sounds of the terminal fading into white noise. He told himself he was relieved. He told himself he was paying her to handle this so he could work. But as he sat in the first-class lounge, staring at the tarmac, he realized he wasn't checking his phone for emergencies. He was checking it because he wanted to tell her he had made it through security. He wanted to tell her, not the girls. Her. He shoved the phone into his pocket, angry at himself. Stop it, he commanded. She is the nanny. You are the boss. Keep the lines clear. Nassau, the Bahamas. Wednesday, 2 p.m. The heat in Nassau was different from Miami. In Miami, the heat was a blanket. In Nassau, it was a physical weight, heavy with salt and history. Malik stood on the dock at the container port, his suit jacket discarded in the back of his rental car, his sleeves rolled up. The noise was deafening, cranes whining, metal screeching against metal, men shouting in the rapid-fire cadence of Bahamian dialect. He was arguing with the port authority manager, a man named Reynolds, who had been a thorn in the Thompson family's side for 2 decades. You can't hold the perishable goods, Reynolds, Malik said, his voice hard. He stepped into the man's space, using his height and breadth to intimidate. The contract states clear priority for medical supplies and food. My containers are sitting in the sun because your crane operators are on a slowdown. The operators are tired, Mr. Thompson, Reynolds smirked, wiping sweat from his forehead. Machines break. People break. If those containers aren't moved by 5 p.m., I'm filing a breach of contract with the ministry, Malik said. He didn't bluff. He never bluffed. And I'll pull the Thompson fleet to Freeport. You lose our volume, you lose your bonus. Reynolds' smile faltered. He knew Malik wasn't the old man. Malik's father had been charming. Malik was a sledgehammer wrapped in a silk suit. I'll see what I can do, Reynolds muttered. Don't see, Malik said, checking his watch. Do. He turned and walked away, the adrenaline of the confrontation buzzing in his veins. This was who he was. Competent, ruthless when necessary, powerful. He got into the air-conditioned car and slammed the door. The silence was instant. He leaned his head back against the seat, closing his eyes. The adrenaline faded, leaving only the exhaustion. He missed Elena. She used to come with him on these trips. They would stay at the Ocean Club, drink rum punch, and laugh about the port politics. Now he was alone. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat. It was a video call. Home. Malik's heart jumped. A traitorous, pathetic reaction. He propped the phone up on the dashboard and answered. The screen filled with chaos. Daddy! Zadie's face was pressed so close to the camera that all he could see was her nose and one eye. Back up, Z. Let him see you. Arielle's voice came from off-screen. Zadie pulled back. She was wearing her school uniform, but her hair was wild, and she had chocolate on her chin. Amara was behind her, holding a drawing. Hi, girls, Malik said, his voice softening instantly. The ruthless businessman vanished. How was school? Amara got a gold star, Zadie screamed, and I ate all my carrots. Did you? Malik smiled. Even the dragon skin ones? Yes! Miss Arielle put dip on them. It's magic dip. It's ranch dressing, Amara said dryly, rolling her eyes. But she was smiling. She held up her drawing. Look, Daddy, it's a boat, like yours. It was a crude drawing of a container ship, but the son in the corner was smiling. It's beautiful, baby, Malik said. I'm going to put it on the fridge when I get home. When are you coming home? Zadie asked, her face falling. Friday, Malik said. 2 more sleeps. Miss Arielle is making lasagna, Zadie said, seemingly comforted by the menu. Can you talk to her? The phone moved. The camera swiveled. Arielle came into the frame. She wasn't looking at the camera at first. She was wiping the counter. She wore a simple white t-shirt and jeans, her hair tied up in a scarf. She looked domestic, real. She looked up, and her eyes locked with his through the screen. Mr. Thompson, she said. The formality was back. It was a shield. Malik, he corrected automatically. Is everything okay? Everything is fine, she said. Her voice was the calmest thing in his day. The AC repairman came. The leak in the guest room is fixed. Zadie scraped her knee at recess, but she survived. Amara finished her reading log. She listed the domestic details like they were vital statistics. To him, they were. Thank you, he said. He wanted to say more. He wanted to tell her about Reynolds. He wanted to tell her that the heat in Nassau reminded him of his grandmother's funeral. He wanted to tell her he was lonely. You look tired, Arielle said suddenly. Malik blinked. It's been a long day. Did you eat? He realized he hadn't. No, not since breakfast. Arielle frowned. It was a small, disapproving crease between her brows. You can't run a fleet on empty, Malik. Go get some conch salad, or at least a sandwich. The girls need you to have energy when you come back. The girls need you. Always the girls. She never said I need you. I will, he promised. Good night, Malik, she said softly. Good night, Arielle. The screen went black. Malik sat in the car for a long time, staring at his own reflection in the dark phone screen. He felt a strange warmth in his chest, a dangerous comfort. She had scolded him. She had cared. He started the car and drove toward the nearest food stand. He didn't even like conch salad, but he was going to eat it, because she told him to. Miami, Florida, Friday, 11:30 p.m. The flight back had been delayed. By the time Malik's Uber pulled up to the gate, it was nearly midnight. The house was dark, save for a single lamp glowing in the living room window. A beacon. Malik let himself in quietly. He set his suitcase down by the door, trying not to make a sound on the marble floor. He loosened his tie, pulling it from his collar with a groan of relief. He walked into the living room. Arielle was asleep. She was curled up on the oversized beige sofa, a book resting on her chest. Her glasses had slit down her nose. She was wrapped in a throw blanket, her feet tucked under her. Malik stopped. He should leave. He should go upstairs, shower, and collapse into his own bed. But his feet wouldn't move. He walked closer. He stood over her, watching the gentle rise and fall of her breath. In sleep, the lines of worry on her face smoothed out. She looked younger, vulnerable. He noticed the book she was reading. It was a novel, something about history, not a parenting guide, not a cookbook, a reminder that she had a mind and a life outside of his children. He felt a sudden, overwhelming urge to touch her cheek, just to see if her skin was as soft as it looked. Don't, he told himself. You are the employer. She is the employee. She is sleeping. As if sensing his presence, Arielle stirred. She took a deep breath, her eyelashes fluttering. Her eyes opened. For a second, she looked confused. Then she saw him. She didn't scream. She didn't jump. She simply looked at him, her eyes soft with sleep. You're back, she whispered. Her voice was husky. The sound went straight to Malik's spine. I'm back, he said, his voice low. I didn't mean to wake you. Arielle sat up, adjusting her glasses, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. The professional mask slid back into place, but it was thinner now. I wanted to wait up, she said, to give you the report. The report can wait until morning, Malik said. He sat down on the armchair opposite her. He was too tired to stand, and he wasn't ready to leave her orbit. Are you hungry? She asked, making a move to stand up. I saved you a plate. No, he said, holding up a hand. Sit, please. I ate at the airport. She settled back into the cushions. The room was quiet, lit only by the warm yellow lamp. It felt intimate. It felt like a marriage, though neither of them would dare use that word. How was Nassau? She asked. Hot, Malik said. Loud, successful. The ships are moving. Good. How were things here? He gestured vaguely to the house. Quiet, Arielle said. The girls missed you. Zadie slept with your picture under her pillow last night. Malik smiled, a sad, weary smile. She did? Yes. She was afraid you wouldn't come back. Malik looked at the floor. Because of Elena? Because children understand loss better than we think, Arielle said gently. But you came back. That's what matters. You broke the pattern. Malik looked up at her. You made it easy to come back. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Arielle went still. The air between them shifted. thickening with the unspoken attraction that had been simmering for weeks. I just kept the schedule, she said, downplaying it. It's not about the schedule, Arielle, Malik said. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. The house feels... He paused, searching for the words. As she looked at him, her mind screamed no. He was her boss. If this went wrong, she would lose her job, her home, her income. He continued, quieter now. It feels alive. I used to dread walking through that door. Tonight, I didn't. Arielle studied his face. She saw the loneliness there, the raw exhaustion of a man who had spent 3 years holding up the sky by himself. She felt a pull in her chest, a dangerous tug of desire. She wanted to comfort him, not as a nanny, but as a woman. She wanted to reach out and smooth the furrow between his brows. Then a sudden shift occurred. She told herself she had to regain control of how she felt, of how he made her feel. She tightened her grip on the blanket. I'm glad, she said, her voice steady but distant. Everyone needs a sanctuary, Malik. She used the word sanctuary like a wall. Malik heard the distance. He respected it. He sat back, honoring the boundary she had drawn. Go to bed, Arielle, he said softly. You're off the clock. I am, she agreed. She stood, clutching her book, and walked past him. As she passed, the scent of her, something floral and clean, like jasmine soap, filled his senses. He closed his eyes, breathing it in. Good night, Malik, she said from the doorway. Good night. He waited until he heard her door click shut down the hall before he let out a long, shaky breath. He was in trouble. He was in deep, serious trouble. The threat. Monday, 4 days later. The bubble burst on a Monday afternoon. It was a perfect Miami day. Sunshine, a light breeze. Malik came home early, planning to surprise the girls and take everyone out for ice cream. The success in Nassau and the steady rhythm at home had given him a false sense of security. He felt lighter than he had in years. He walked into the house, loosening his tie, a smile already forming. Hello, he called. In the kitchen, Amara's voice answered. Malik stepped inside. The girls sat at the table, working through snacks and homework. On the surface, everything looked normal, but the air felt wrong. Arielle stood at the counter, her back to the room, wiping it down with unnecessary precision. Her posture was rigid, her movements careful, controlled in a way Malik had come to recognize. She was performing calm. Daddy, Zadie said, smiling, though she also glanced at Arielle before standing. Malik kissed the girls on the head, then looked at Arielle. Hey, he said gently, everything okay? Arielle turned. Her face was composed, her expression professional. If Malik hadn't known her as well as he did now, he might have missed it. But her eyes were slightly red, tired, guarded. I'm fine, she said. Just a long day. Malik studied her for a moment, then forced a smile. How about ice cream? He asked the girls. Anyone up for a treat? Zadie lit up instantly. Yes! Amara nodded, already gathering her shoes. Malik looked at Arielle. You should come too. Arielle hesitated, just a fraction of a second. I'll stay here, she said. I need to finish a few things. It was polite, distant, final. Malik didn't press. He nodded once. Okay. She helped the girls gather their things, her voice warm, her smile practiced. She tied Zadie's laces, reminded Amara to bring her sweater. She was steady, capable, unshaken. Only Malik noticed how tightly she held herself together. When the door closed behind them, the house fell silent again. Later that night, the girls were asleep by the time Malik came downstairs again. The house was dark except for the soft light over the kitchen sink. Arielle stood there, sorting mail. Malik stopped when he saw the envelope in her hand. White, official, already creased. "Hey," he said quietly. She stiffened, then turned. "I didn't want to worry the girls," she said before he could ask. Her voice was calm, but something underneath it was fraying. "That's all." Malik stepped closer. "You were crying." She exhaled slowly. "It's personal." "If you're breaking down in my kitchen," he said carefully, "it concerns me." She set the envelope down, folded her arms. "It's not a household issue." Malik's eyes flicked to the return address. Legal. He recognized the weight of it immediately. "Is this about your ex?" he asked. The question landed. Arielle's composure cracked, just for a second. "It's complicated," she said. "I can help," Malik said instinctively. "I have attorneys. I can make a call." "No." Her voice was sharp now. "Don't." He stopped. "I'm not asking you to fix this," she said, meeting his eyes. "I'm asking you not to." Malik swallowed. She took a breath, steadying herself. He handled everything, the money, the paperwork, the decisions, and when he left, I didn't know how to stand on my own. I won't give that power away again. Malik felt the weight of her words settle into his chest. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't know." She leaned back against the counter, exhausted now that the performance was over. "What do you need?" Malik asked. Not "what can I do," but "what do you need?" Arielle looked at him, surprised. "Time," she said, "and space." "You have both," he said immediately, "and flexibility. Whatever you need." She studied him, searching for pressure, finding none. "Okay," she said softly. "Thank you." She passed him on her way down the hall. Malik watched her go, aware that something fundamental had shifted. She wasn't just his employee, and he wasn't just worried about losing the calm she brought into the house. He was worried about losing her. Chapter 4. Lines in the Sand. Sunday, 2 weeks later, 10 a.m. Sunday mornings in the Thompson household used to be a graveyard of quiet hours. Before Arielle arrived, Malik would usually drag himself out of bed, turn on cartoons for the girls, and attempt to make pancakes that were either burnt on the bottom or raw in the middle. They would eat in a silence that felt heavy, the absence of Elena sitting at the head of the table like a physical weight. But this Sunday, the house was vibrating. The kitchen was a war zone of flour, laughter, and the rhythmic sound of a whisk hitting a ceramic bowl. "Grandma says you have to put nutmeg in it," Amara insisted, standing on a step stool next to the island. She was wearing an apron that was 3 sizes too big, her face dusted with white powder. "Grandma is right," Arielle said, moving around the kitchen with a fluid grace. She was chopping onions for the stuffing, her knife skills precise and terrifyingly fast. "But just a pinch. If you put too much, it tastes like soap." "Soap pancakes!" Zadie shrieked from the floor, where she was ostensibly helping, but mostly feeding pieces of bell pepper to a plastic dinosaur. Malik stood in the doorway, a mug of coffee in his hand, watching them. He felt like an intruder in his own life. A welcome intruder, but an intruder nonetheless. Today was his mother's birthday. Lucille Thompson, matriarch, critic, and the only person on earth Malik was truly afraid of, was in town and coming for lunch. Usually this event was catered. Malik would order platters from a high-end bistro, hire a server, and spend the afternoon making polite conversation while checking his watch. But Arielle had vetoed the caterer. "Your mother is Bahamian," she had said 3 days ago, looking at the catering menu with disdain. "You cannot serve her cold salmon and quinoa salad on her birthday. It's disrespectful." "I don't cook, Arielle," Malik had argued. "I do," she had replied. And so the kitchen smelled of roasting pork, baked macaroni and cheese, the real kind with the crust, and the sweet, yeasty aroma of rising dough. "Daddy," Amara spotted him, "come taste the batter. Does it need more nutmeg?" Malik walked over. He felt the warmth of the oven and the warmth of the room. He leaned down, and Amara held up a spoon. He tasted it. "Perfect," he said. He looked at Arielle. She wasn't looking at him. She was focused on the pork shoulder, rubbing a marinade of sour orange and garlic into the meat. Her hands were strong, capable. She wore a yellow dress today, bright and cheerful, with her hair pulled back in a scarf. She looked like sunlight. "My mother is going to interrogate you," Malik warned her quietly, taking a sip of coffee. "She's going to inspect the baseboards. She's going to ask why the macaroni isn't using her specific brand of sharp cheddar." Arielle looked up, her eyes dancing with a rare playfulness. "I use the sharp cheddar she likes. I found the red wax block at the market. And the baseboards are clean. I checked them myself." "You did?" "I know Caribbean mothers, Malik," she said softly. "I know how to pass the inspection." Malik felt a tug in his chest. It was admiration, mixed with something sharper. She had gone out of her way to make this day perfect, not because it was her job description. The contract said child care and light housekeeping, but because she cared. "Thank you," he said. "Don't thank me yet." She wiped her hands on a towel. "Wait until she tastes the stuffing. If she frowns, I'm fired." "If she frowns, I'll eat the whole tray myself," Malik promised. For a second, the air between them shimmered. It was easy. It was domestic. It was terrifyingly comfortable. Then the doorbell rang. The sound echoed like a gavel. "She's here!" Zadie screamed, abandoning the dinosaur. Malik stiffened. He set his mug down. "Showtime!" Arielle watched him straighten his spine, the relaxed father vanishing, and the dutiful son appearing. She felt a pang of sympathy. She knew what it was like to perform for family, to hide the cracks in the foundation. "Go," she said gently. "I've got the kitchen." 12:30 p.m. Lucille Thompson was 65 years old, wore linen suits that cost more than Arielle's entire wardrobe, and had eyes that could spot a dust bunny from 3 rooms away. She sat at the head of the dining table, her posture regal. The girls were seated on either side of her, behaving like angels. Zadie was actually using a napkin. Malik sat at the opposite end, tense. Arielle came in from the kitchen, carrying a heavy ceramic platter of roasted pork. The steam rose up, carrying the scent of garlic and citrus. She placed it on the table. "Happy birthday, Mrs. Thompson," Arielle said respectfully, stepping back. Lucille looked at the pork. She looked at the macaroni, golden and bubbling. She looked at the coleslaw, finely shredded the way islanders liked it, not chunky. She looked up at Arielle. "You made this?" Lucille asked. Her voice was unreadable. "Yes, ma'am," Arielle said. "Malik didn't order the dry fish from the place on Brickell. I convinced him that home cooking was better for the occasion," Arielle said, glancing at Malik. Lucille picked up her fork. The room went silent. Even the girls stopped fidgeting. Lucille took a bite of the pork. She chewed slowly. She took a forkful of the macaroni. Malik held his breath. Lucille set her fork down and dabbed her mouth with her napkin. "The macaroni has pepper in it," Lucille said. "Just a touch of goat pepper," Arielle nodded. To cut the richness of the cheese. Lucille's face cracked into a genuine smile. Finally, she said, looking at Malik, someone in this house who has taste buds. The tension broke. Malik let out a laugh. I told you, Ma. She's good. She's not just good. She's a miracle worker, Lucille said, piling more food onto Zadie's plate. She turned to Arielle. Sit down, child. Don't hover. It's Sunday. Oh, I can eat in the kitchen, Arielle stammered. The boundaries of her job were always shifting, and she tried hard to keep them firm. Nonsense, Lucille commanded. There is an empty chair right there. Sit. Tell me where your people are from. Arielle hesitated, looking at Malik for permission. Malik nodded. Sit, Arielle. She sat. For the next hour, Arielle wasn't the nanny. She was a guest. She and Lucille swapped stories about Nassau. Lucille talking about the old days on Bay Street. Arielle talking about the changes in the school system there. They laughed about the specific stubbornness of Haitian grandmothers versus Bahamian grandmothers. Malik watched them. He saw his mother laughing, really laughing, for the first time since Elena died. He saw his daughters listening, entranced by the stories of a heritage they barely knew because he had been too busy and too Americanized to teach them. And he saw Arielle. She was radiant. The guardedness she usually wore like armor had slipped. She was witty, respectful, but quick with a joke. She fit. God help him, she fit perfectly. You know, Lucille said, leaning back as coffee was served, Malik needs this. Malik looked up, startled. Needs what, Ma? Life, Lucille said bluntly. She gestured to the table, the food, the girls, noise, flavor. You've been living in a museum for 3 years, son, walking around on tiptoes. It's nice to see you have some color in your cheeks again. She looked pointedly at Arielle. Arielle froze, her coffee cup halfway to her mouth. She sensed the shift. The mother's approval was a dangerous thing. It implied permanence. It implied romance. Arielle is an excellent employee, Malik said quickly, his voice sharp. He needed to draw the line. She manages the house very well. The word employee landed with a thud. Lucille raised an eyebrow. She saw right through him. Of course, an employee. Arielle set her cup down. The warmth left her face. The mask returned. I should clear the table, Arielle said, standing up. I have to prep the girls' uniforms for tomorrow. Leave the dishes, Lucille said. Malik can do them. No, it's my job, Arielle said firmly. Excuse me. She gathered the plates efficiently, stacking them. She didn't look at Malik. She retreated into the kitchen, the swinging door shutting off the laughter. Malik felt a knot form in his stomach. He had protected the boundary just like he was supposed to. So why did he feel like a coward? She's lovely, Malik, Lucille said quietly once the door was closed. Ma, don't, Malik warned. He ran a hand over his face. She's wonderful, but I can't. He paused, searching for words. I have boundaries. Lucille didn't flinch. Elena is gone, she said gently, and I am sorry. Your wife is not coming back. I want you to be happy, and I want the girls to be happy. Malik glared at her. You gave Elena a hard time, Mom. So why are you suddenly so supportive of Arielle? He hesitated, then added, You know she was married. A few weeks ago, she was shaken because of her ex-husband. Lucille studied him for a moment, thoughtful. You have baggage, she said calmly. So does she. It's different. She sighed. You were young, and I wasn't sure Elena was the right fit for you. But things worked out, and I truly am sorry she's gone. Her voice softened. What matters to me now is that you are well, and the girls are well taken care of. Malik was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I am happy she's here. She's been a wonderful addition to this home. His jaw tightened. But I won't let the girls get attached, and I won't let myself get attached. And you? Lucille asked, her eyes sharp, unblinking. Are you already attached? Malik stood up. I'm going to get more coffee. He walked away, but he couldn't escape the truth in his mother's eyes. The storm Thursday, 4 days later, 6 p.m., the weather in Miami turned with the violence of a mood swing. All day, the sky had been a bruised purple, the air thick and heavy with humidity. The pressure was low enough to make joints ache. By evening, the wind was whipping the palm trees in the front yard into frenzied dances. Tropical storm watch, the weatherman announced on the kitchen TV. Arielle was securing the patio furniture. She pulled the cushions inside, her hair whipping around her face in the rising wind. Malik came home early again. The ports were closing down for safety. Get inside, he yelled over the wind as he saw her on the deck. He slid the glass door open. Arielle, come in. It's starting. She rushed in, breathless, her skin glowing from the exertion and the damp air. I just wanted to save the cushions, she said, locking the door. Forget the cushions, Malik said. He was energized by the storm. There was something primal about the weather that stripped away the pretenses of civilization. Are the girls okay? They're building a fort in the living room, Arielle said. They're excited. Good. We might lose power. Do we have flashlights? In the pantry. And the emergency candles. The rain hit the roof like a barrage of bullets. It was deafening. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. They stood in the kitchen, the adrenaline of the storm mirroring the tension that had been building between them since the Sunday lunch. Malik had been distant all week, trying to reinforce the employee line. Arielle had been professional, retreating into her duties. But the storm trapped them. I'm going to check the study, Malik said. The window in there leaks sometimes when the wind is from the east. I'll get some towels, Arielle said automatically. I can handle it, he said. Malik, she looked at him, exasperated. It's a 2-person job if it's flooding. Stop being a martyr. She grabbed a stack of towels from the laundry room and followed him. The study was dark, lit only by the gray light filtering through the rain-lashed windows. It was Malik's sanctuary. Leather books, mahogany desk, the smell of old paper and scotch. It was also a shrine. There were photos of Elena everywhere. Elena on a boat, Elena at their wedding, Elena holding a newborn Amara. Arielle usually avoided this room. It felt too private. Over there, Malik pointed. Water was pooling on the hardwood floor beneath the large bay window. The seal had failed. The wind was driving the rain through the crack. We need to move the rug, Arielle said. They both lunged for the heavy Persian rug. Malik grabbed one end, Arielle the other. They heaved it back, rolling it away from the water. Towels, Malik commanded. Arielle dropped to her knees, spreading the towels to soak up the water. Malik knelt beside her. They were shoulder to shoulder, working frantically as the water kept seeping in. It's coming in fast, Malik grunted. He reached up to the latch of the window, trying to tighten it. It's stuck. Let me help, Arielle said. She stood up and pressed her weight against the frame, trying to leverage it shut while he pulled the latch. Push harder, he said, his muscles straining. I am! Thunder cracked, a sound so loud it shook the floorboards. Arielle gasped, jumping. She lost her footing on the wet floor. She slipped. Malik spun around and caught her. His arm went around her waist, pulling her flush against him to keep her from falling. His other hand grabbed her upper arm. They froze. The world narrowed down to the sound of the rain and the feeling of their bodies pressed together. Arielle's hands were on his chest, splayed against the damp fabric of his dress shirt. She could feel his heart hammering. It was fast, too fast. Malik looked down at her. Her face was inches from his. He saw the droplets of rain on her forehead. He saw the dark, dilated pupils of her eyes. He smelled the jasmine soap and the scent of rain. He held her. He didn't let go. The lines in the sand he had drawn, the ocean just washed them away. Arielle, he breathed. It wasn't a question. It was a plea. He felt her tremble, not from the cold, from desire. She leaned into him just a fraction. It was an invitation. Malik's hand moved from her arm to her neck. His thumb brushed her jawline. His skin against hers felt like fire. He wanted to kiss her. He wanted to bury his face in her neck and forget the grief. Forget the logic. Forget the 3 years of cold solitude. He wanted to feel alive. He lowered his head. Her lips parted. Then a flash of lightning illuminated the room. The light hit the silver frame on his desk. The photo of Elena. She was smiling, radiant, looking straight at him. Betrayal. The word screamed in Malik's head. It was a physical blow. He was holding another woman in the room where his wife's ghost lived. He was desiring another woman while wearing the ring Elena gave him. He froze. Arielle felt the change instantly. She felt his body turn to stone. She looked at his eyes. The heat was gone, replaced by a wall of ice, replaced by a look of sheer panic and guilt. Malik shoved her away. It wasn't gentle. He physically pushed her back, breaking the contact as if she burned him. No, he rasped. He backed up, hitting the edge of his desk. No, I can't. Arielle stumbled, catching her balance. She stood there, her chest heaving, her hands empty. She saw the look on his face. It wasn't just rejection. It was horror. He looked at her like she was a mistake, like she was a sin he had almost committed. The shame hit her like a wave. She had misread it. Or worse, she hadn't misread it, but she wasn't enough to make him forget her. She was just the nanny, just the distraction. Malik, she whispered, stepping forward. Get out, he said. His voice was shaking, but it was harsh. Leave the towels. Just get out. I was just helping, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't mean to. Please, he said. He turned his back to her, gripping the edge of the desk until his knuckles turned white. He stared at the photo of Elena. Just go, Arielle. The rejection was absolute. Arielle felt tears prick her eyes, hot and stinging. She swallowed them down. She wrapped her dignity around her like a cloak. Yes, Mr. Thompson, she whispered. She turned and walked out of the study. She left him alone with the rain, the leak, and the ghost of his wife. The aftermath. Friday, the next morning. The storm had passed, leaving the sky a brilliant, innocent blue. Palm fronds littered the driveway, but the sun was shining as if nothing had happened. Inside the house, the temperature had dropped to freezing. Malik had left for work before anyone woke up. He left a note on the counter. Meeting early. Don't wait up. Arielle moved through the morning routine like a robot. She made breakfast. She packed lunches. She braided hair. Why is Daddy gone? Zadie asked, poking at her oatmeal. He has a lot of work, Arielle said. Her voice was flat. Is he mad? Amara asked. He didn't say goodbye. He's not mad at you, Arielle said gently. He just has a lot to take care of. She helped the girls get ready, keeping her voice calm and steady. She drove them to school, then returned to the house alone. It felt quiet in a way it hadn't before. She walked into the study to clean up the towels. The rug was damp. The window was still leaked-stained. She picked up the wet towels. She looked at the desk. The photo of Elena seemed to be watching her. "I'm not trying to take your place," Arielle whispered to the photo. "I promise." But deep down, she knew that wasn't entirely true. She had wanted him. She had wanted to be the one he held. And that desire terrified her because it made her vulnerable. She went to her room. She opened the safe. She took out her immigration file. She sat on the bed and forced herself to focus. She organized the documents, affidavits from neighbors, bank statements. Focus on survival, she told herself. This is real. The moment in the study was a fantasy, but she couldn't shake the feeling of his hand on her neck. Saturday night, 8 p.m. Malik didn't come home for dinner on Friday or Saturday. He stayed at the office until the cleaning crews left. He buried himself in spreadsheets, tracking shipments that were already on time. He created problems just so he could solve them. He was hiding. He knew it. His secretary knew it. When he finally came home on Saturday night, the house was dark. The girls were asleep. He walked into the kitchen. There was a plate covered in foil on the counter. Jerk chicken, rice. Beside it was a note in Arielle's neat looped handwriting. "Amara needs a permission slip signed for the zoo trip. It's on the table. There is plenty of food. Eat." Malik stared at the note. He felt like a coward. He had almost kissed her, and then he had punished her for it. He had treated her like she was the problem, when the problem was his own fractured heart. He took a bite of the chicken, cold, standing over the sink. It tasted like ash in his mouth. He walked past her room. The door was shut. No light showed underneath. He wanted to knock. He wanted to apologize. He wanted to explain that he saw Elena's face and panic hijacked his brain. But he didn't knock, because if she opened the door and looked at him with those soft, knowing eyes, he knew he wouldn't be able to stop this time. He went upstairs to his empty bedroom, the king-sized bed looking vast and lonely. He lay down, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in the dark. He had drawn a line in the sand to protect his heart, but now he was realizing that he was on the wrong side of the line. He was safe, yes, but he was completely, utterly alone. And downstairs, Arielle lay awake, listening to his footsteps, wondering how long she could live in a house where the silence was no longer peaceful, but heavy with things unsaid. The slow burn had turned into a freeze, and neither of them knew how to break the ice without shattering everything. The aftermath, 10:30 p.m. The room had cooled. They lay beneath the sheet, close but unguarded. Malik rested on his back, one arm around her, the other shielding his eyes. Arielle lay against his chest, listening to his breathing settle into something calm. Neither of them spoke at first. The silence felt earned. "I'm sorry," Malik said finally. She lifted her head slightly. "For what?" "For pushing you away," he said. "For making you feel like you didn't belong here." "You were afraid," she said gently. "I was," he admitted. "Not of this." His arm tightened around her. "This feels right." She didn't argue. Later, she shifted, already thinking of the morning. "I should go back to my room before the girls wake up." He smiled faintly. "Stay for a little while." "Just a little," she agreed. She closed her eyes again, letting herself rest. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, neither of them felt like they were holding their breath. The next morning, 6:30 a.m., Malik woke up alone. He reached out for her, but the other side of the bed was cool. She had kept her promise and left before dawn to avoid confusing the girls. He sat up. Usually the morning brought a wave of heaviness, but today, the sunlight streaming through the curtains looked different, brighter. He got out of bed. He felt sore, but in a good way. He felt alive. He walked into the bathroom and splashed water on his face. He looked at himself in the mirror. The haunted look in his eyes was gone. He looked like Malik Thompson. He dressed quickly, jeans and a polo shirt, not a suit. He wasn't going into the office early today. He was going to make breakfast. He walked downstairs. The smell of coffee was already in the air. He walked into the kitchen. Arielle was there. She was fully dressed in her usual practical clothes, her hair back in a bun. She was packing lunchboxes. She looked up when he entered. For a second, there was a hesitation. The fear of the morning after. Would he regret it? Would he pull back? Malik walked straight to her. He didn't stop until he was standing right in front of her. He reached out, took her face in his hands, and kissed her, softly, sweetly, in the middle of the kitchen, in the daylight. He pulled back and smiled. "Good morning," he said. Arielle let out a breath, her shoulders relaxing. A radiant smile broke across her face. "Good morning, Malik." "Pancakes?" he asked. "Please," she said, "but let me mix the batter. I don't trust you with the nutmeg." He laughed. He grabbed the flour. From the top of the stairs, two sleepy little girls watched. They didn't understand everything, but they understood one thing. The house wasn't quiet anymore. It was happy, redefining power. 2 weeks later, the waiting room of the immigration attorney's office was quiet, smelling faintly of stale coffee and anxiety. Arielle sat in a stiff chair, her posture rigid, hands clasped in her lap. The notice in her purse felt heavy, as if it carried more weight than paper should. USCIS. Interview notice. No date yet. Just the confirmation that scrutiny was coming. Malik sat beside her, wearing his power suit, a charcoal gray cut that made him look like he belonged in any room he entered. He answered emails on his phone, but his knee rested against hers, steady and grounding. "Miss Baptiste? Mr. Thompson?" The paralegal opened the door. They followed her into the office. The attorney, a sharp woman named Mrs. Vasquez, looked up from a thick file. Her eyes flicked from Arielle to Malik. "Mr. Thompson," she said, surprised. "I wasn't expecting you. Miss Baptiste usually comes alone." "Arielle asked me to be here," Malik said evenly. He didn't say employee. He didn't say nanny. "Her work is part of my household, and her stability matters to me. I want to understand the process." Mrs. Vasquez studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right." She turned to Arielle. "As we discussed, the divorce occurred before the 2-year mark. USCIS will be looking closely at whether the marriage was entered into in good faith and whether you've remained self-sufficient since." "I have documentation," Arielle said, steady despite the tension in her chest. "Bank statements, tax returns, employment records, letters from the church." "That's good," Mrs. Vasquez said. "They may also ask about your current living and employment arrangement. Being a live-in employee can raise questions if it's not clearly professional." Arielle's shoulders tightened. This was the fear she hadn't said out loud, that her life with Malik could be misread. Malik leaned forward, placing his hands flat on the desk. "Mrs. Vasquez," he said calmly, "Arielle Baptiste is employed by me under a formal agreement. She manages my household and cares for my children. I can provide an employer affidavit, proof of compensation, and documentation of her independence. She is not dependent on me for her status." He glanced at Arielle, his voice softening. And we're not hiding anything. We are in a relationship, an honest one. Does that hurt her case? Mrs. Vasquez considered them both. She noticed the way Malik deferred to Arielle's presence, the way Arielle held herself, composed, dignified. Honesty usually helps, she said. It adds complexity, yes, but it also shows that Miss Baptiste has built a real life here. Employment, community, responsibility, roots. She opened a folder. We shift the framing, Mrs. Vasquez continued. We present you as a skilled professional who became essential to an American household, not someone clinging to circumstances, but someone contributing meaningfully. Arielle exhaled, tension easing from her chest. Essential, she repeated quietly. Yes, Malik said, reaching for her hand across the desk. Essential. The sanctuary 1 month later. The evening air was cool. The girls were asleep. The house was quiet, but it was a warm quiet, a silence filled with peace. Malik was in his study. He was standing in front of the window, looking out at the dark garden. In his hand, he held a small velvet box. He opened it. Inside sat his wedding band. He had worn it for 10 years. He had worn it for 3 years after Elena died. It was a part of his hand, a weight he had grown accustomed to. Earlier that evening, while washing dishes, he had noticed a tan line on his finger. He had taken the ring off to scrub a pot, and for the first time, he hadn't immediately put it back on. He looked at the ring. He touched the gold. I love you, he whispered to the empty room. I will always love you, Elena. He waited for the guilt. He waited for the feeling of betrayal. It didn't come. Instead, he felt a gentle sense of release. He felt like Elena was somewhere, smiling, happy that he wasn't eating cold pizza in the dark anymore, happy that someone was braiding Amara's hair and singing Creole songs to Zadie. He closed the box. He opened the top drawer of his desk, the one where he kept the girls' birth certificates and his passport, the important things. He placed the box inside, right next to the passports. It wasn't thrown away. It was archived. It was a cherished part of the history, but it was no longer the present. He shut the drawer. He looked at his hand. It looked bare, vulnerable. It's okay, he told himself. He turned off the lamp and walked out of the study. He walked down the hall, past the girls' rooms, toward the master bedroom. The door was open. Arielle was sitting up in bed, reading. She was wearing one of his t-shirts. She looked up when he entered, her eyes warm and welcoming. She noticed his hand immediately. She didn't say anything. She didn't make a big deal out of it. She just smiled, a soft, knowing smile that told him she understood exactly what it cost him and exactly what it meant. Malik climbed into bed beside her. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. Hi, he said. Hi, she replied, stroking his back. I was thinking, he said, his voice muffled against her neck, about the garden. It needs work. The orchids are dying. I noticed, she said. I was thinking we could plant bougainvillea. It's hardier, and it reminds me of Nassau. Bougainvillea is good, he agreed. Bright, loud. Messy, she added. It drops flowers everywhere. I don't mind messy, Malik said. I think I'm done with perfect. He kissed her, a slow, lingering kiss that promised everything. I think I'm ready for messy, he whispered. I think I'm ready to live. Epilogue. 6 months later. The kitchen was chaotic. It was Saturday morning. Flour was everywhere. Music was blaring. Old school calypso that shook the windows. Turn it up, Zadie screamed, dancing on a chair. She was 6 now, taller, louder, missing a front tooth. Amara was laughing, actually laughing, trying to teach Malik how to wind his waist. "No, Daddy, you look like a robot," Amara giggled. "Loosen your hips." "I am loosening," Malik protested, looking ridiculous and happier than he had ever been in his life. Arielle stood at the stove, flipping pancakes. She was laughing so hard she could barely hold the spatula. She looked at them. Her family. The immigration process was finally over. The letter had come 3 weeks earlier. Quiet, official, final. Her permanent resident card now lived safely in her wallet. No longer a thing she thought about every day. She wasn't waiting anymore. She was home. Zadie leaned close to Malik and stage whispered, "Daddy, are you and Miss Arielle married now?" Malik laughed. "Not yet." Arielle met his eyes over the stove. "Not yet." He caught her eye again and stopped dancing, ignoring the girl's protests. He walked over and wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Happy?" he asked. Arielle looked at the scene before her, the sunlight streaming in, the bougainvillea blooming purple outside the window, the girls singing off-key. "Yes," she said, "I am." Malik kissed her cheek. "Me too," he said. The house, which had once held its breath in grief, was now exhaling in joy. The restoration was quiet no longer. It was loud, it was messy, and it was alive. The end.